Hello and welcome to Storyboard. I'm Shibani Gharat. Procter & Gamble, makers of brands like Vicks, Ariel, Gillette, Pampers, last week announced new commitments aimed towards advancing equality and inclusion across the country at their 4th annual We See Equal Summit. If you recall, a couple of years back at the summit, P&G had set out a goal to achieve 50% representation of female directors behind camera for the company's brand ads by 2024. And the company claims this has already been achieved 1 year ahead of the target. Over the past few years, P&G's brands Ariel, Whisper and Vicks have tried to keep cause advertising at its center. While Ariel shares the message of gender equality in the division of household through its Share the Load campaign, Vicks talks about touch of care, taking up topics such as transgender rights, adoption and children with disabilities. Whisper has attempted to raise awareness around period taboos and drive menstrual education with initiatives such as Touch the Pickle, Keep Girls in School and more. We are catching up with Sharat Verma, Chief Marketing Officer P&G India and Vice President Fabricare P&G India, and speaking to him about cause marketing. And with inflationary pressures, has it become increasingly difficult as a marketer to manage triple bottom line of people, planet and profits? Let's find out. Sharat, welcome to CNBC-TV18 and welcome to Storyboard again.
Thank you for having me.
Sharat, at your recently held We See Equal Summit, you announced fresh commitments towards equality and inclusion. Tell us, how do these commitments shape your marketing and advertising plans and strategies?
So equality and inclusion is core to how we work at P&G, right? We want to use our voice in advertising to be a force for good and a force for growth, right? We want to have meaningful conversations and put out positive imagery, right? So these are really our two focus areas, right? If you look at, some of the conversations we've been having across brands in P&G, Ariel, Share the Load, Whisper, Keep Girls in School, Vicks, Touch of Care, Gillette, Shaving Stereotypes, Pampers, It Takes Two. They're all aimed at having conversations which can help drive change the consumer wants to see, right? We want to join, curate, amplify, direct conversations to bring about change the consumer wants to see. The other focus area for us is really positive imagery, right? We want to put out progressive imagery that can help drive change, right? And that's been a big focus for us. And some of the commitments we made at We See Equal are, in light of that change that we want to see.
And also, one of the things that was announced at We See Equal a couple of years ago was 50% women behind the camera when it comes to your advertising. And you have, in fact, at the We See Equal Summit this year, you already have reached that target of having 50% representation of women directors behind the camera. So if you can share with us, over the past couple of years, in terms of your advertising, what has this 50% representation of women directors behind the camera helped you gain in terms of perspective, probably? Like, how has it shaped and changed your TVCs and campaigns?
When we started off 2 years back, only 20% of our films were directed by women. We said that we want to achieve a 50-50 ratio in 3 years. And you're right, we've achieved that 1 year ahead of time, right? So we've already achieved a 50-50. We want to be responsible in the images that we put out. We are the world's largest advertiser. The results have been great, right? Copy cut-through rates are up 20%, which is a massive number. I think the advertising we're putting out is more authentic, more relatable, more progressive. I think we've had very rich conversations during the process, which has helped us unpeel some of the bias that we are all carrying, right? Which is conscious, or sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious bias, right? If you look at, a recent hair care ad that we were making where they wanted to show a progressive woman, they showed the woman in a suit, right? And then the director came up and said that, listen, why is that necessary? Can't she be dressed in, a traditional attire? Why does she have to man up for the world to believe that she is progressive, right?
Now, Sharat, moving on to Share the Load Season 6, which was recently launched. Why is it important for P&G to run this campaign for such a long time?
When we started off, 79% of men believed that laundry is only a women's job. The number is down to 26, but 26 is not zero, so the conversation needs to continue. And that's really the reason why we're having, the season of Share the Load, where we're talking about the long-term consequences of
Silent
inequality.
separation.
Absolutely.
And why did you think it was important to talk about silent separation? Why was this topic, breached?
Over 80% of women said that this is impacting their relationship. 65% of women said that this has created an emotional distance between them and their partner, right? And they termed it as, really, it's kind of they're living their own separate lives, right? When we spoke with men, they said there's now, they were basically realized that they missed out on their relationship. There was a bit of silence in their life. They thought they could one day come back, pick it all up and, make it all good, but they felt that, too much water's flown under the bridge, and they were essentially feeling regret that they should have paid more attention earlier, right? So this is what this really silent separation is, the creative articulation of what the consumers told us, right? It's, separation, they're living separate lives and there's silence. So that's what silent separation is, right? It's about talking to men and telling them about the long-term impact that inequality in the division of household chores can have on them and their lives and their relationships.
Yeah, Sharat, since P&G has done so much work with Ariel, with brand like Whisper, speaking about social causes, including social causes in the campaign, and consumers today, as we are well aware, especially the Gen Zs, are very, very careful of, when it comes to choosing their brands, because they want their brand or whatever they purchase to stand for something.
Absolutely.
To own a cause. But what are the challenges in doing that? What are the challenges, for you to have a brand speak about or stand by a cause?
So it's a good question, right? It starts with the consumer, right? First you need to understand what the consumer really wants, right? Now we're very good at understanding what the consumer wants from the category. This is the performance they need from their shampoo. This is what they need from their laundry detergent. But what's also important is what do they really want in life, and that's where the cause comes in. And can your brand become a conduit to the consumer getting what they want in their life, right? And that's how we choose. What is a cause there where we can truly add value and truly take the conversation forward. So that's really the first challenge. The second one is it's a long-term commitment, right? It's not something that
you do and then move
get
on.
and get results.
Yeah.
It's not something that you change every season, right? You need to stay with it for the long term. It's something that the brand team has to imbibe and take on as a goal, like they take on the top line numbers or the profit numbers. This is really, for example, the Ariel team has a goal on gender equality, right? Where that 26 is going to come down to 15 or 14 next year. What is that number? How do we get that to zero? When can we get that to zero? And that's when really it becomes more authentic, because you're right, consumers can see through stuff which is lip service, right? When you see a brand moving from one cause to the other, consumers can see through that, right?
And you mentioned two of the challenges, but another layer to that challenge right now for an FMCG company such as yours is, of course, inflationary pressures that most of, everyone is battling. Having said that, we are also speaking about this triple bottom line we just spoke about: profit, planet and people.
Yes.
How do you manage that as a marketer? How do you manage that triple bottom line? What are the challenges in doing it?
I think, firstly, it's not a choice. Lending your voice to a social cause that consumers care about is not a choice. It's not a choice any longer. It's not different from whatever you do to drive profit or your bottom line or your top line, because consumers are telling you today, and you just shared a bit back, that consumers want their brand to stand for a social or cultural issue that they care about. They want to connect. They want to know what their brand stands for, the values that the brand stands for, right? 9 out of 10 consumers feel better about a brand with which they share, common values and beliefs, right? 6 out of 10, more than 6, actually 65% of consumers said they'd switch a brand if they don't agree with what the brand stands for, right? So that's not really a choice. There's so much clutter out there. Consumers are exposed to over 5,000 brand advertising messages a day, right? And there's so much clutter. And to be able to break through that clutter, to be able to live up to what the consumer wants, you need to make sure that your brand, while it does give the best performance and the best products that the consumer wants in the category and etc., they do need to lend the voice to causes that the consumer cares, and that is what differentiates, the good brands from the others, right? And therefore, really for us, it's not really a choice. Being a force for good is really for us also being a force for growth.
Force for good to force for growth. But profit is very easy to measure. How do you measure the other two bottom lines?
It doesn't happen in a year. It takes some time. But you'll see it very clearly in your brand metrics. So for us, we do have in-process measures, for example. In-process measures helped us, understand whether we've been able to amplify the conversation enough. What's the reach? What are the what kind of engagement did we get, what kind of media did we put behind it. All of that these are in-process measures. But what that should translate to is consumers connecting with the brand on values and beliefs, consumers looking at your brand more favorably, and that translating to, stronger business results, irrespective of the external environment, right?
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
It is time for a short break. On the other side, we are catching up with Manushi Chillar, who's the newest global brand ambassador for Estee Lauder, along with Dikshita Shukla, India brand head Estee Lauder.